Hey everybody, Justin here. I'm sorry about the delay on this video. Expected to have it done a few days ago, but being as this channel is about Crohn's disease, Karin and I both have been kind of sick, and like today started out for me as a pretty rough day as far as health-wise goes. But tonight I'm feeling a little bit better and I've got the energy to make this, so I kind of need to do it while I have the energy. You're probably wondering why Karin's not in this video. The next couple videos are going to be based on our stories individually, and then we'll be coming together for videos in the future to talk about the disease, how we cope with it, and different aspects. But we thought that it was a good idea to tell our stories separately on camera because the majority of our lives with the disease was spent separate. It's only the last 4 years or so that we've been working on that together. So without further ado, here is my story about Crohn's. First off, for those of you who don't know what Crohn's disease is, it is an autoimmune disease, meaning your immune system is attacking your own body. It's specifically geared to attack the entire gastrointestinal tract from the mouth to the anus, and it's about as fun as you can imagine that can be. In my case, the disease has affected my colon, which is now gone. I had that removed a few years ago, and a little bit of my small intestine. It does affect my mouth every now and then. I'll get, not cold sores, but canker sores. My tongue will kind of split, that kind of thing. Thankfully, the throat and mouth haven't been affected by the disease that much. As miserable as dealing with the disease is, down here, I would hate to not be able to eat properly. That said, Crohn's disease does affect your appetite. It affects what you can and can't eat. There are certain foods you have to avoid. So the disease has a lot of things that come with it. A lot of pain, a lot of planning your trips, and you're constantly looking for a bathroom. At home, you're usually in the bathroom. When you're flaring up, the disease is really, really bad. For the most part, when you're not flaring up, there's still sometimes symptoms depending on how well controlled the disease is with medication. So everybody's a little bit different with the disease, and it, of course, matters, where the disease is in their body. For instance, Karin has the disease in a little bit further up the digestive tract from me. So some of our symptoms are a little bit different from each other. So going back in time, it was 2006 when I was diagnosed. Although before that, I could definitely tell that I had symptoms. Growing up, elementary school, middle school, I would always be in the bathroom for too long, or I'd have to run to the bathroom. Had a lot of, abdominal discomfort, but no official diagnosis as to why I had that stuff. I just thought it was, normal. It was in 2006, though, that I had my first colonoscopy, and it was pretty much confirmed that I had Crohn's disease. It was a pretty scary time for me back then. Crohn's disease is a chronic illness, so it never goes away. There's currently no cure. And the first few months before I had the colonoscopy, my body was kind of torn apart with antibiotics because they thought I had a bacterial infection. It was probably 3 months before I actually got the scope done, and it was confirmed that I had Crohn's. And then even then, they had to kind of work their way through the medication list: prednisone, Entocort, steroids, up the wazoo, not literally. Just a whole bunch of medications that trial and error didn't really work for me. Eventually, we got kind of fed up with, dealing with, trial and error and just the madness of, being sick for weeks and weeks and weeks without any answers as to why I wasn't being fixed. So we went out, my parents and I went out to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. The Mayo Clinic is absolutely everything that people say about it. It's fantastic, at least in my experience. They're great communicators, they're very compassionate, top-notch care. They can get you in and out really quickly, and that's saying something because most doctors' offices tend to be really slow. And when you're in pain, it makes it even slower. So anyway, when I was out at the Mayo Clinic, they did more tests, and as miserable as that was, we did get some answers Eventually, they put me on a med called Remicade. It's a biologic that basically turns off the part of the immune system that is attacking you. It doesn't mean that your immune system's completely shut off. You're still able to fight against sicknesses like colds and stuff, but being as it is an immunosuppressor, it does tend to kind of make you a little bit weaker. Not so much energy-wise, Crohn's does that enough on its own, but you have to get a TB test before you can get put on the med. You have to avoid major illnesses as much as you can. Once I started Remicade, it was a few weeks before I started actually feeling better, which was a major relief because it had been almost a year before I felt any kind of symptom relief with my Crohn's. Remicade lasted me for a long time. It was probably 7 years that I was in remission, for the most part. I still had some symptoms here and there. I'd still be running to the bathroom. I'd still occasionally see bloody stools, but again, for the most part, I was pretty well under control. In 2013, that's when things kind of took a turn for the worst. My doctor started thinking that my body was growing antibodies towards Remicade, which happens. Some people can stay on it for 20-some years without any kind of problem. Other people, their body just kind of refuses the drug. That's partly due to Remicade being based on rat DNA. Go figure. So in 2013, my doctor decided to switch me up to Humira. That's a shot that you give yourself in the abdomen. It was not fun. I didn't like it. And I especially didn't like Humira for the fact that it didn't really do anything for me. In fact, it sent me way backwards. When I switched over to Humira, the drug did absolutely nothing for me. In fact, it got to the point where when I went to see my doctor again in Minnesota, and keep in mind that's a Michigan to Minnesota drive every time you do that, they actually wanted to remove my colon because it was just torn apart by the disease. That was a terrifying time simply for the fact that such a permanent decision was kind of thrown on me. It wasn't super urgent, like they didn't want to just do it right then and there, like no matter what, but it was definitely a decision that needed to be made as soon as possible. So what we did instead was I got something called a loop ileostomy. It basically reroutes your bowel so that it gives your colon a bit of a break. A loop ileostomy is what most people refer to as a colostomy, but it's not exactly a colostomy. Mine was placed over here by my ileum. The loop part means that you're getting stool coming out of your small intestine and you're still connected to your large intestine. It's just the pipes, if you will, are just kind of laying next to each other. Stuff still gets into the colon a little bit here or there, but it, for the most part, is shut off. It's like a, shut-off valve, basically. I had the loop ileostomy for about a year. They said that it could be about 3 months before I could get reversed, seeing, on how I did. But I decided to push it out to a year, knowing my body to be a bit of a jerk. So 2015 comes around, it was January, and everything's looking really good with me disease-wise. My colon's basically back to normal, so we put me back together. I got rid of the loop ileostomy, and I was back to normal, basically. By then, we'd pretty much learned our lesson about Humira, and I got completely off of that, and I had started up a biologic called Entyvio. Entyvio is awesome. I'm currently on it now. It works for me. It's great. And the best part is your body doesn't really form antibodies against it. In fact, I'm not sure that's even possible. Unfortunately, Entyvio really hadn't built up in my system enough to give me complete remission from the disease. So within 5 months, I was back to square one. They wanted to take my colon out again. So facing this permanent decision again was a little bit easier. I'd already kind of lived with an ostomy bag for a while. I knew what that was like. I knew a little bit better if I could deal with this for the rest of my life. And that's what I chose to do. It was a permanent and scary decision, but at the end of the day, my health's been better because of it. Being colon-free, that was the main thing that was affected by my disease. And so not having that there, my disease started affecting me less and less and less to the point where I was actually doing really well. In 2016, it's probably the best year I've had in a long time. I went on bike rides, I was really active. It was great. And like I said, Entyvio, once it finally started kicking in, put me pretty much in remission. I barely had any symptoms. The only symptoms I did have was a skin separation at the 6 o'clock area around my stoma. I'll be doing a video on stomas and ostomy bags and all that stuff later on. I won't get graphic for this video, being as it's like the first video for this channel. That said, 6 o'clock region, skin separated, not good. It was not healing due to something called a fistula. Fistulas happen a lot with Crohn's patients. It's basically a tract that's formed by diseased bowel. Stool gets down into it and just makes it worse and worse. And in my case, it was right at that area by my ostomy bag, not allowing it to heal. So by this time I had stopped seeing Mayo Clinic and I went to University of Michigan, which is where I currently go for my care. They're pretty good. They're a little bit slower. They're kind of a learning hospital as well because it's a university. So things aren't quite as clockwork as Mayo Clinic. But so far I've been fairly pleased with the care, enough to get another surgery. That was about a month ago. Getting to that, 6 o'clock region, needed to heal that up. So we decided to switch from Entyvio to another med called Stelara. Much like Humira, Stelara didn't do anything for me, and I actually ended up needing surgery again, like I mentioned just a month ago. I had about 11 inches of small intestine from here inward that was pretty well diseased. It needed to come out. On top of that, because I've had so many surgeries on this side, we ended up moving it over here. So I now have my bag over here. In fact, these wounds, because it's only a month out from surgery, are still healing. So it's been pretty rough few months. In fact, I would say most of this year has been really rough on me. Symptom-wise, not having a colon means I'm not running to the bathroom, but it does mean that I still have to deal with some of the abdominal pain when I'm flaring up. My disease has been very painful, and we've been trying to work on different ways for pain control, between actual medicine and herbal remedies and all this stuff. So, channel's called The Crohn's Couple. How does my story intermingle with Karin's? Well, when we met 4 years ago, I was pretty sick. She could tell that pretty immediately, and that's kind of how we bonded. When we both found out we had Crohn's, we kind of, clicked in a way that most friends don't. And so you could almost say, in fact, you definitely could say that this disease brought us together. I consider the disease definitely a curse on my life. I mean, it's been awful, but the silver lining, in fact, even more than a silver lining, it's been great to have Karin in my life. We've taken care of each other through everything. We're in fact currently engaged, so we like to joke that we've got the in sickness and health part way down. One really nice thing about us being together and kind of knowing each other's symptoms and everything is that we can really understand what the other is feeling like when they're sick. When she grimaces in pain, I know exactly what she's feeling, and I try to help her as much as I can. Most couples, it's one person has the disease, one person does not, and I'm not taking away from the fact that they try to care for each other as best as they can, but having someone there who really knows what's going on, knows what you need at home, can get you what you need when you're struggling, it's invaluable, it's amazing. So that being said, the next video in this lineup, which you can click here for, is Karin's story. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I hope that it's helped you learn a little bit more about Crohn's disease and obviously my story as well. Feel free to share this video and Karin's video as well to spread awareness for the disease. If you could like this video and maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. If you have Crohn's disease, we'd love to be able to help you out in any way through these videos. Leave a comment below if you have any questions for us. We'll do our very best to reply to every single comment we get. And again, just appreciate you taking the time to sit down and watch this video and learn a little bit more about Crohn's disease. Thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great day.